I will sing a new song to the Lord because he has done marvels.
The first U.S.-born pope using English in his first papal mass. Hear what he had to say in his homily. Plus, across the country, Americans celebrate the election of Pope Leo XIV. We speak with one man who's known him for years. And the Holy Father is also an Augustinian, begging the question, who are the Augustinians? We have the answer. And in Rome, celebration continues. We speak to pilgrims in the Eternal City. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Pope Leo XIV, our new Holy Father, incenses the altar in the Sistine Chapel during the first Holy Mass of his papacy, celebrated with the College of Cardinals that elected him to the chair of Peter. Thank you for being with us. I'm Catherine Hadro. Pope Leo XIV has begun his new role as the Bishop of Rome, pledging to align himself with ordinary people. EWTN Vatican correspondent Valentina De Donato reports on his first Mass as leader of 1.4 billion Catholics.
As the new Bishop of Rome, Pope Leo XIV celebrated his first Holy Mass together with the cardinals in the Sistine Chapel, the very place where he was elected just a day ago. Breaking with tradition, the Holy Father began his first Mass homily in English.
Through the ministry of Peter, you have called me to carry that cross and to be blessed with that mission. And I know I can rely on each and every one of you to walk with me as we continue as a church, as a community of friends of Jesus, as believers, to announce the good news, to announce the gospel.
He then switched to Italian, saying we are all called to bear witness to our faith in Christ, and he insisted that without faith, life lacks meaning.
La pace sia con tutti voi.
Peace be with you. That's such a powerful message that I think the world needs. And so, yeah, very, very hopeful.
I hope it means unity. I hope it means a preaching of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I'm hoping for peace. I'm hoping that he can bring a unique quality, both his spiritual as well as his diplomatic skills to help us with peace.
Pope Leo XIV is a dual citizen of the United States and Peru, where he spent many years first as a missionary before becoming bishop, making him the first pope from each country.
First U.S. Pope, I think the good thing is the balance of him, because he's a U.S. American with a strong Latin American background. He was bishop in Peru. He knows the smell of the frog, and he knows to be a pastoral person, obviously, and he knows very well the world church.
And not only a pope, a U.S.
A Chicago, U.S.
Are you from Chicago?
My mother is. I'm from Wisconsin, and I have many, many cousins in Chicago, and they're absolutely thrilled.
Me being Venezuelan with South American roots, obviously that's an extra joy. But again, I think my focus is more on what it means to have a new pope more than where the pope is from.
Feliz. Ahora feliz.
Happy, so happy. He spoke in Spanish, and I felt like he understood us.
The choice of his name, a nod to Pope Leo XIII, well known for his social doctrine in the Church, authoring the encyclical Rerum Novarum, which is considered the Catholic Church's first social encyclical.
I think it's a good, positive bridge to the not tradition, the history of the Church, the good history of the Church, of big popes with that name. So I think it's wonderful. We have a good start.
The first pope to be of both Americas is now upon us, a new dawn for the Catholic Church. In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
Near the Vatican at the Pontifical North American College, 7 American cardinals answered questions about participating in the conclave, the qualities of Pope Leo, and the impact of having an American pope. The cardinals emphasized the unity and common purpose of the cardinal electors and described an atmosphere of contemplation inside the Sistine Chapel. They also shared their hope that Pope Leo will promote a missionary discipleship.
I felt comfortable saying to Pope Leo, from one South Sider of Chicago to another, I promise you my respect, my fidelity, and my love. It was just an amazing opportunity to see such a diverse assembly of humanity, obviously coming from many different perspectives, facing many different challenges, but coming together for a common purpose, to find Peter's successor. And I think we did well.
In his first exclusive interview since the conclave, Cardinal Michael Churnney told EWTN about what Pope Leo's choice of name signals and how it is a direct recall of the Pope that initiated the modern social doctrine of the Church.
We all need to welcome, to protect, to promote, and to integrate. So that's not going to change. I'm sure that Pope Leo is going to push that just as much as Pope Francis. But I think by choosing the name Pope Leo, I think he has signaled a difference in approach, which is that the issue of work, in a sense, embraces the issue of migration. It's the issue of work is even broader and deeper than the issue of migration. In fact, many migrate because of work, and even those who migrate for reasons of security or to escape persecution, they also have to work, otherwise they're not going to have a life again.
Many expected the conclave to take longer than usual because of the number of cardinals' unfamiliarity with each other. And German Cardinal Rainer Maria Volke was one of them. In an interview with EWTN, he explained his surprise at the quick result, but also what this says about the unity of the Church.
I didn't think it would happen so quickly. On the other hand, I think it's a good sign. Many had previously speculated whether we cardinals even understood each other and knew each other properly, etc. It shows that we are united in the unity of faith, that we stand on a common foundation, and that is Christ. And in that sense, it doesn't matter which part of the world we come from. That is what unites us. And I'm glad that we were able to elect the successor to St. Peter so quickly after all.
As we've reported, Pope Leo has spent most of his life as a friar in the Order of St. Augustine. So who are the Augustinians? Their history goes back centuries. The order is named after St. Augustine, the Bishop of Hippo, who lived in the late 4th and early 5th centuries. However, they were not founded until the year 1244 by Pope Innocent IV, who united various groups of hermits to live in community. They are a mendicant order, meaning they live in common but are often moved around based on where they are needed by the universal church. In their rule, they profess to live together in harmony, being of one mind and on heart on the way to God. Joining us now for more is Dr. Chad Pecknold, professor of systematic theology at the Catholic University of America right here in Washington, D.C. Chad, thank you so much for joining us. In the Pope's first address to the world yesterday, he called himself a son of Augustine. You yourself are an expert on St. Augustine. What does this mean that the Pope identifies so heavily with this church father?
Well, I think it's incredibly fitting because, we had Pope Benedict, who took the name of one of the fathers of Western monasticism, St. Benedict of Nursia, and then we had his successor take the name of another religious founder, St. Francis. And I think there was a sense that maybe we should have no more religious order popes for a bit. But actually, it's quite fitting to go back to St. Augustine because he's another founder of Western monasticism. I think his vision in the City of God is a vision which inspired Western civilization. It inspired the whole medieval West. And I think by, an Augustinian who chooses the name Leo, I think, unites Saints Augustine and Saints Thomas. And also, remember, it's not just Leo the 13th, but also Leo the Great, who was one of the most important Augustinian popes. He was a pope who was enormously influenced by the thought and teachings of St. Augustine, and he fought against Pelagianism, he fought against Manichaeanism. I think in this pope we'll see both the Leonine, the 13th stress on social doctrine, but I think we'll also see a kind of contemplative vision of order, which you get from Augustine, and it's also what you get from Leo the Great, is a pope who thinks about the harmony, the tranquility of order is what the definition of peace is for St. Augustine, and what was Pope Leo XIV's first word from the loggia.
Right, peace. Right. Chad, what impact do you think the Pope will have specifically on American Catholics?
Well, obviously you could just see in the footage that it's kind of electric, in St. Peter's Square, the sort of fascination with a Pope who speaks with a Midwest accent, who roots for the White Sox, who has probably had, lots of deep dish Chicago style pizza. And that smell of the sheep, I think, idea that came with Francis wasn't always so credible to Americans, but this seems credible. I think Americans are enthused. We're, I think, hitting a sort of resurgence of Catholic faith in America right now. And so this couldn't be better timing for a resurgence of American Catholicism. So I think it's a really exciting, kind of delightful treat from God for us.
I think so too. Dr. Chad Pecknold, thank you so much for your insight.
A pleasure.
There are around a half dozen Augustinian colleges here in the United States, including Villanova University outside Philadelphia, the school from which then Robert Prevost graduated in 1977. So celebrations broke out when he became Pope Leo XIV. The bells at the iconic St. Thomas of Villanova Church on campus rang repeatedly to welcome the new pope. Students and professors celebrated a major moment for the school, the church, and the world. One student said the new pope, being an alum, shows Villanova's commitment to the Catholic faith. And we turn now to Father Rob Hagen, an Augustinian priest and senior associate athletic director at Villanova. He has also been a friend of Pope Leo XIV for more than 20 years, I believe. Father Rob, great to have you back on the program. First, what has it been like since the news broke out that there was a pope and that he's an alum of Villanova?
Just euphoria, just joy. We were flabbergasted to see his name be announced and him emerge on that balcony, as you would feel if a family member stood up there. Wow. For us, he was Brother Bob, and to know the man that he is, the faith that he has, the intellect that he has, the love for the poor. It gave us all incredible gratitude and joy to see the culmination of his many gifts now being shared with the world in this incredible leadership position that the Holy Spirit has led him to.
Well, tell us more about this man that you know who is now our Pope. Does he have more of a shy personality? What is he like? Describe him for us.
He is incredibly bright. He speaks multiple languages. He's a critical thinker. He has a depth of spirituality. This is a big job, but it's not his first leadership position. And so he's been around the table. He can handle, conflicts of interest, people who are in crises. And he has a certain serenity and a calm and a peace about him. And I think that it comes directly from his relationship with the Lord. But then he shares that kind of aura of serenity and peace when he speaks. He was a math major, and he's also a canon lawyer. So he's a logical thinker. And so he expresses himself with great clarity. I think the flock will appreciate the way he speaks and he writes, because it comes across in a very intelligible, relatable way.
Wow. Well, we are so grateful that you are helping us get to know our new Holy Father in a more personal way. Hope to speak with you again. Father Rob Hagan, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
From the death of Pope Francis to the election of Pope Leo XIV, the past few weeks have been ones of strong emotion, from mourning to joy. We here at EWTN want to express our heartfelt thanks to all of our viewers. This was an historic moment in church history, and we are delighted to have been able to share this time with you. So once again, thank you for choosing to be here with us. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, including high-stakes talks. The Trump administration prepares to meet with Chinese officials to talk trade, and could humanitarian aid be making its way to Gaza? The new U.S. ambassador to Israel weighs in. Retired Supreme Court Justice David Sudter has died. President George H.W. Bush appointed the New Hampshire native to the court in 1990. At the time, Sudter was called a moderate conservative, yet throughout his almost 2 decades on the bench, he aligned with more liberal justices on issues such as abortion, the death penalty, and LGBTQ issues. Sudter retired from the court in 2009. No cause of death was given. Sudter was 85 years old. President Donald Trump suggests he could lower tariffs on China. He made the statement just one day before the two sides are set to hold trade talks, and one day after announcing his first big trade deal with the United Kingdom. President Donald Trump puts his Treasury Secretary in charge of trade talks with China, writing, 80% tariff on China seems right, up to Scott B. If Scott Bessent follows through with the suggestion when he meets his Chinese counterparts this weekend in Switzerland, then the U.S. would significantly lower its 145% tariffs on China. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt responds.
China needs the United States of America. They need our markets, they need our consumer base, and Secretary Bessent knows that he's going to Switzerland this weekend with the full support and confidence and trust of the president here at home.
President Trump also writes, many trade deals in the hopper, all good, great ones. Yesterday, the president spent more than an hour in the Oval Office speaking about his new trade deal with the United Kingdom.
This is now turning out, I think, really to be a great deal for both countries, because it'll be really great for the UK also.
The president earlier placed a 10% tax on imports from Britain and 25% tariffs on autos, steel, and aluminum.
We've opened up new market access, ethanol, beef, machinery, all the agricultural products. They've agreed to open their markets, and that will add $5 billion of opportunity to American exporters.
Today, the National Economic Council director says U.S. negotiators are close on other deals, too.
Howard Lutnick and Jameson Greer have suggested that they might be moving towards getting a good deal in Asia, and there are a number of candidates for that, and that way we're kind of getting trade deals all around the world, and I think they like the look of that.
Just one day after his congressional testimony, FEMA's acting administrator was dismissed. And speaking with lawmakers, Cameron Hamilton broke with fellow members of the Trump administration on the future of FEMA.
As the senior advisor to the president on disasters and emergency management and to the Secretary of Homeland Security, I do not believe it is in the best interest of the American people to eliminate the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Having said that, I'm not in a position to make decisions and impact outcomes on whether or not a determination such as consequential as that should be made. That is a conversation that should be had between the President of the United States and this governing body.
President Donald Trump has suggested that individual states, not the federal government, should take the lead on natural disasters. He had sharply criticized the FEMA's response to the aftermath of Hurricane Helene in North Carolina. President Trump has also fired Librarian of Congress Carla Hayden. She was notified by email late last night. Confirmed in 2016, Hayden was the first woman and first African American to hold the post. She had recently come under fire from the Conservative American Accountability Foundation, who accused Hayden of being woke and anti-Trump. The Congressional Black Caucus issued a stark rebuke of the decision, accusing the administration of waging a war on truth. As another week draws to a close in Congress, agreement among Republicans remains elusive on President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Some GOP lawmakers say they are even further apart now than they were at the start of the week. Medicaid cuts and state and local tax deductions remain key sticking points. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, good evening, Catherine. Yes, the mood here among Republicans is a bit uneasy, although House Speaker Mike Johnson says he is confident that the GOP's mega bill will get past the House, move on to the Senate, and eventually the president's desk. It is filled with Trump's domestic agenda. However, others are not so confident. Several Republicans tell me reforming Medicaid is a top priority, but they're not going to cut benefits to qualified people.
And if we eliminate all the fraud, waste, and abuse, and there's plenty of it, we're left with at least a 25% increase in Medicaid over the past 10 years, over the next 10 years, from the current spending level. Only in Washington could anyone claim that's a cut.
Democrats continue to argue that Americans will pay the price.
Millions of people rely on Medicaid, and the thing that's so ludicrous about it is that so many of these Republicans represent rural areas of our country, and rural hospitals depend on Medicaid, and they're going to just shutter people down from getting access to health care.
It's not just Medicaid funding Republicans are divided over. House Republican leaders are nowhere close to notching out a deal on raising the state and local tax deductions known as SALT. They are set to expire at the end of the year.
I know that SALT is another issue that you're looking at.
I think SALT will be increased somewhat. So that's a cost that we have to then find other offsets. But I think SALT will be increased. I don't think we'll get to six figures.
House agricultural Republicans are also planning to include a $60 billion skinny farm bill. Some of the cuts being considered are to SNAP, the food assistance program, which could be a tough sell.
Let them squabble and squander and go over this. At this point in time, all I can do is, like you, I'm a spectator. Every once in a while you look down, there's no steering wheel, there's a bar, and that's a roller coaster.
For people to claim to vote for these bills, claiming to be public servants and claiming to be Christians is offensive.
Several sources tell me that some GOP lawmakers and even aides have privately argued with each other to let the entire reconciliation process collapse and then hold out for a late December tax deal with Democrats. I also want to let you know that leading national pro-life organization Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America sent a letter to lawmakers urging the GOP to include in the reconciliation bill to stop taxpayer funding for big abortion and for Planned Parenthood. SBA Pro-Life America says although the Hyde Amendment prohibits federal funding, big abortion has mastered an end around through Medicaid, Title X, and other programs. I'll definitely stay on top of the issue. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
The U.S. ambassador to Israel says humanitarian aid may be on its way to Gaza soon.
President Trump has made very clear that one of the most urgent things that needs to happen is humanitarian aid into Gaza. And he has tasked all of his team to do everything possible to accelerate that and to, as expeditiously as possible, get humanitarian aid into the people. So today, we are announcing that that process is ongoing. It is launched.
Mike Huckabee adds that charities, nonprofits, and several governments would partner on the new aid distribution system. He says Israel will be providing security for the deliveries in a way that prevents Hamas from accessing the aid. This as the humanitarian conditions worsen under Israel's blockade on crucial supplies into the territory. Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian President Vladimir Putin must be held accountable for his war crimes through a tribunal. Dozens of EU officials have already endorsed the creation of the special tribunal to prosecute crimes of aggression by Russian officials. Meanwhile, Ukrainians on the front line have been tracking violations of a ceasefire by the Russians. Putin had initially called for the ceasefire in observance of Victory Day, but Ukrainian officials say he violated it on day one. Russia is celebrating Victory Day, observing 80 years since the defeat of Nazi Germany in World War II. Numerous world leaders attended celebrations of Russia's largest secular holiday. Among them, Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Russian President Putin has hosted meetings at the Kremlin with Xi in recent days as the two nations look to strengthen ties. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, we take a look back at the sights and sounds from an incredible week for the church. Finally tonight, it was a memorable few days in Rome, starting with the Mass to begin the solemn process of selecting a new pope, to the joyful scenes yesterday at the White Smoke and the first appearance of Pope Leo XIV.
Pater et Filius et Spiritus Sanctus.
Amen. Omne sancti patriarche et prophete, orate pro nobis.
Et ego Petrus Baptista, cardinalis Pizzavalla, spondeo, voveo, acciuro. Sic me Deus adiuvet, et ex santa Dei Evangelia, que manum mea tango.
Habemus Papam. Ipsi intercedant pro nobis ad Dominum. Amen.
We continue to pray for our new Holy Father, and we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Catherine Hadro. Good night, and God bless.